The communications hub at Forward Operating Base Sentinel hummed with the constant chatter of war. 6 different radio frequencies crackled through Maya Santos's headset simultaneously, a chaotic symphony of tactical call signs, position reports, and encrypted bursts that would overwhelm most operators. But Maya wasn't most operators. At 24, Petty Officer Second Class Maya Santos had intercepted more actionable Taliban communications than any signals intelligence analyst in Regional Command East. Her wall displayed commendations from 3 different task forces. Her incident reports had led to the capture of 2 high-value targets and prevented countless IED attacks. Yet when she walked through the base, operators still called her the radio girl, like she was serving coffee instead of saving lives. She didn't mind, not really. Results mattered more than recognition. But today, the results were screaming at her, and nobody was listening. Maya's eyes narrowed as she reviewed the intercept logs from the past 72 hours. The target compound in the Kunar Valley, where SEAL Team 6 was about to launch their raid, had been buzzing with Taliban radio traffic all week. Encrypted bursts, unencrypted coordination, the usual pattern of insurgent communications. Until yesterday, then silence, complete absolute silence. Her instructor at Fort Gordon had drilled one lesson into her head. When the enemy goes quiet, they're either gone or waiting, and terrorists don't just leave valuable compounds. Maya pulled up the pattern analysis software, overlaying enemy communications data from the past 6 months. Every time the Taliban had gone silent like this, it preceded an ambush. 3 times in Helmand Province, twice in Kandahar. Each time, coalition forces had walked into kill zones. Her hands moved quickly across the keyboard, generating a threat assessment report. She flagged it priority and sent it to the operations center. Then she waited. And waited. 15 minutes before mission launch, her report hadn't even been opened. Maya grabbed her clipboard and headed toward the briefing room, her boots echoing in the plywood corridor. Through the window, she could see SEAL Team 6 conducting their final preparations. 12 of the most elite warriors America had ever produced, checking weapons, adjusting night vision equipment, moving with the casual confidence of men who'd done this 100 times. She knocked on the briefing room door. "Enter," a voice called. The room fell silent as Maya stepped inside. Lieutenant Commander Derek Hastings stood at the front, a tactical map of the Kunar Valley spread before him. His team leaders sat around the table, hard men with hard eyes, covered in the scars of a dozen deployments. "Sir, I need 2 minutes of your time." Maya's voice was steady, professional. "I've completed a signals intelligence analysis of the target area, and there are significant indicators of—" "Santos, right," Hastings interrupted, not unkindly. He was a tall man with close-cropped gray hair and the weathered face of someone who'd spent years in the sun. "The comms tech." "Signals intelligence analyst, sir. I've been monitoring enemy communications in the Kunar Valley for 6 months, and—" "We appreciate the work you do." His tone was the verbal equivalent of a pat on the head. "But we've got Tier 1 intelligence on this target. CIA intercepts, ISR confirmation, the works. High-value Taliban commander, confirmed location, limited security element. It's a clean op." "Sir, with respect, the radio frequencies have gone completely silent around that compound. In my analysis, that pattern has preceded every major ambush in this region for the past." "Santos." Hastings's voice carried the weight of finality. "I've been running operations in this valley since before you graduated high school. Sometimes the enemy goes quiet because they're spooked. Sometimes because they've moved. We've got multiple intelligence sources confirming this target is solid." One of the team leaders, a muscular chief petty officer with a thick beard, spoke up without looking at her. "We've planned for contingencies. We know what we're doing." Maya felt heat rising in her cheeks, but she pushed forward. "The pattern suggests a coordinated ambush, sir. If you just look at the data. That's enough, radio girl. Hastings's patience had evaporated. We don't need a comms tech second-guessing operational planning that's been vetted by JSOC. Stick to your headset and let the operators handle the operations. The dismissal in his voice was absolute. Several of the SEALs were already looking away, back to their maps and equipment checks. She was wasting their time. Maya stood there for a moment, her clipboard trembling slightly in her hands. She wanted to argue, to make them understand that she wasn't some inexperienced kid playing with radios. She'd studied this enemy for months. She knew their patterns, their tactics, their communications discipline. But she was a second-class petty officer, and he was a lieutenant commander leading SEAL Team 6. The conversation was over. "Yes, sir," she finally said, her voice tight. As she turned to leave, she heard one of the SEALs mutter to another, probably just trying to feel important. Low laughter followed her out. Maya walked back to her communications hub, her jaw clenched. She sat down at her station and pulled up the live satellite feed of the Kunar Valley. Somewhere in those mountains, the enemy was waiting. She could feel it in her bones, see it in the data, hear it in the silence. 30 minutes until mission launch. She looked at her screens, 6 different radio nets, real-time intercept capability, direct communication links to every element on the base. All this technology, all this capability, and it meant nothing if people didn't listen. Maya pulled on her headset and settled in for what she knew would be a long night. If they wouldn't hear her warnings before the mission, maybe, just maybe, she could help them survive it when everything went wrong. Because it would go wrong, the data never lied. Outside her window, the sun was setting over the Afghan mountains, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. The SEAL team was loading into their MH-60 Black Hawks, their silhouettes dark against the dying light. Maya watched them go, her stomach churning with dread. "Come home safe," she whispered to the empty room. "Please come home safe." The helicopters lifted off, their rotors beating the air like war drums, carrying 12 men toward a valley that had swallowed their radio signals, and might soon swallow them too. In her headset she heard the pilot's voice. "Sentinel, this is Knight Rider. Package is airborne. Time to target 23 minutes. Maya's fingers moved to her keyboard. She began monitoring every frequency, every channel, every whisper of electronic communication in that valley. They hadn't listened to her warning. But she'd be listening when they needed her. The Black Hawks skimmed low over the ridgelines, their rotors barely clearing the rocky peaks. Inside the lead helicopter, Lieutenant Commander Derek Hastings reviewed the mission brief one final time on his tablet, the screen's glow illuminating his face in the darkness. Objective: capture or kill Qari Ahmadullah, senior Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks across 3 provinces. Intelligence indicated he was meeting with 2 subordinate commanders at a compound in the Kunar Valley, a rare opportunity to decapitate an entire terror network in a single strike. The plan was textbook: fast insertion, 3 clicks from target, overland approach using night vision and thermal optics, assault the compound, secure the high-value targets, extract before dawn. Clean, surgical routine. Hastings had run this exact operation dozens of times. He trusted his team, trusted the intelligence, trusted his instincts honed over 15 years of combat operations. The image of Maya Santos trying to warn him flickered briefly through his mind, but he pushed it aside. Young analysts always saw patterns that weren't there. Overcautious, inexperienced. He'd been doing this since she was in middle school. 5 minutes, the pilot's voice crackled in his headset. Hastings looked at his team. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb, his second-in-command, gave him a thumbs-up. 12 men, each one a veteran of countless missions, the best of the best. "Lock and load," Hastings ordered. The sounds of weapons being charged filled the helicopter's cabin, a mechanical chorus that always made his pulse quicken. No matter how many times he'd heard it, that sound meant the mission was real. The helicopters descended into a dry wadi 2.5 clicks south of the target, their wheels barely touching the ground before the seals fast-roped out. Within 15 seconds, both birds were airborne again, disappearing into the night sky, their departure masked by the terrain. Silence fell over the valley like a blanket. Hastings formed his team into a tactical column. Webb took point with the lead fire team. Petty Officer Chen, their communications specialist, positioned himself in the middle with the radio. 2 assaulters carried the breaching charges. The designated marksman, a lanky Texan named Rodriguez, covered their 6. "Move out," Hastings whispered into his radio. They moved like ghosts through the Afghan night, their night vision goggles turning the darkness into shades of green. The valley was quiet, almost too quiet. No dogs barking, no distant generator sounds, nothing. Hastings felt a small knot form in his stomach but dismissed it. Villages often went silent when they sensed military presence. It meant nothing. They covered the first kilometer in 20 minutes, moving cautiously through the rocky terrain. The compound appeared on their thermals, a cluster of mud brick buildings surrounded by a low wall. No heat signatures visible, no movement. "Looks abandoned," Webb whispered over the radio. "Stay sharp," Hastings replied. "Intel says they're here." They pushed forward, closing the distance. 2 clicks, 1.5. The compound remained dark and still. Hastings checked his watch. 1:43 hours, right on schedule. 1 click out. The valley remained eerily silent. No wind, no animal sounds, just the soft crunch of their boots on the rocky ground and the quiet breathing in his headset. Rodriguez, the rear security, suddenly froze. "Boss, I've got a bad feeling about." The world exploded. Muzzle flashes erupted simultaneously from 3 different ridgelines, transforming the darkness into a strobe-lit hell. The distinctive crack of AK-47s mixed with the heavier thump of PKM machine guns. Tracers crisscrossed the valley like deadly fireworks, forming a cone of fire with the SEAL team at its center. "Contact, contact on all sides," Webb's voice screamed through the radio. An RPG screamed overhead, its trail painting an orange streak across Hastings's night vision. The rocket-propelled grenade impacted 50 meters behind them, the explosion sending a shower of rock and dirt into the air. "Move, get to cover," Hastings shouted, his training overriding the shock. The team scattered toward a dry streambed 20 meters to their left, the only cover in the kill zone. Bullets kicked up dust around their boots as they ran. Another RPG streaked past, so close Hastings felt the heat. They dove into the rocky streambed as machine gun fire tore through the space they'd just occupied. The natural depression offered some protection, but it was barely 3 feet deep and littered with stones that provided minimal cover. Chen slid in beside Hastings, fumbling for the radio. "Sentinel, this is Nomad 6, we are." The explosion cut him off. An RPG impacted directly on the streambed's edge, 10 feet from Chen's position. The blast waved through the communications specialist backward, and Hastings watched in horror as shrapnel tore through Chen's shoulder and chest. The primary radio, strapped to Chen's back, sparked and smoked, its casing cracked open like an egg. "CHEN's hit, Corpsman UP," someone screamed. The team's medic, Petty Officer Jackson, crawled through the hail of bullets to reach Chen, whose blood was already spreading across the rocky ground in a dark pool. Hastings pressed himself against the rocks, his mind racing. They were pinned down in a shallow depression with minimal cover, taking fire from elevated positions on 3 sides. The enemy had set up a perfect L-shaped ambush, textbook Taliban tactics, executed with precision that suggested planning and rehearsal. His blood ran cold as the realization hit him. They'd been expected. The enemy had known they were coming, had known exactly where they'd approach from, had prepared this kill zone specifically for them. The radio girl had been right. Webb status report, Hastings shouted over the gunfire. We've got 2 wounded, primary comms are destroyed. Webb's voice was strained. We're sitting ducks here, boss. Another RPG impacted nearby, showering them with debris. Hastings could hear voices shouting in Pashto from the ridgelines, the Taliban fighters coordinating their fire, tightening the noose. He did a quick mental count. Approximately 30 to 40 enemy fighters, maybe more. Heavy weapons, high ground, prepared positions. Against his 12 men in a shallow streambed with limited ammunition and no functional communications. The mathematics of combat were brutally simple. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and cut off. Rodriguez returned fire with his marksman rifle, dropping a Taliban fighter on the eastern ridge. Boss, they've got us zeroed. We need air support now. But their primary radio was destroyed. The backup frequencies were in Chen's damaged equipment. They were deaf, dumb, and blind to the rest of the world. Hastings grabbed Chen's tactical vest, searching frantically through the pouches for the backup radio. His fingers closed around it, a smaller PRC-148 designed for short-range communications. The casing was cracked and the antenna was bent, but the power light flickered weakly. It might work, maybe. Webb, cover me, Hastings shouted. He extended the damaged antenna and switched through frequencies, searching for anything that could reach back to base. Static, more static. The valley walls were blocking transmission on the standard tactical frequencies. Another explosion rocked their position. Machine gun fire raked the streambed, forcing everyone to press themselves flat against the rocks. Hastings could hear screaming. Petty Officer Martinez had taken a round through the leg. 2 wounded now. Ammunition expenditure was critical. No comms with base. The enemy was maneuvering to flank their position. They had minutes, maybe less, before this went from bad to catastrophic. Hastings cycled through more frequencies on the damaged radio, his fingers slippery with Chen's blood. Nothing. Static. Dead air. Then, impossibly, a voice crackled through the speaker, faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. SEAL element, this is Sentinel Actual, do you copy? Hastings's heart leaped. Someone was transmitting on an old, rarely used frequency. Someone was reaching into this hell and offering a lifeline. He keyed the damaged radio, praying it could transmit. This is Nomad 6. We are under heavy fire, multiple wounded, primary comms destroyed. We need immediate. Bullets sparked off the rocks above his head, forcing him down. The voice came back, clearer now, calm and steady amid the chaos. This is Santos, Signals Intelligence. I can see the battlefield through enemy communications. Let me bring you home. Santos, the radio girl, the analyst he dismissed 3 hours ago. Hastings felt shame and hope surge through him simultaneously. Santos, this is Nomad 6 Actual, he gasped, pressing the radio against his face as explosions continued to rock their position. We're in a kill zone. We need you. Maya's coffee cup hit the floor and shattered into a dozen pieces, brown liquid spreading across the communications hub like spilled blood. But she didn't notice. Her entire world had narrowed to the desperate, broken transmission crackling through her headset. Broken arrow, we are compromised, heavy contact, multiple casualties. Then nothing, just the empty hiss of static that meant death in the mountains. No, Maya's hands flew across her console, her fingers dancing over controls with desperate speed. She switched to the backup frequency. Static. The emergency channel, static. Every standard tactical frequency that should have connected her to the SEAL team returned only the hollow sound of silence. The operations center behind her erupted into controlled chaos. Major Richards, the night operations officer, was already shouting into his headset. Get me air support. I want a Pash spinning up now. Where's the quick reaction force? Captains and lieutenants scrambled to their stations. Radios crackled with urgent traffic. Computer screens glowed with tactical maps as staff officers tried to piece together what had happened from the fragmentary distress call. But Maya blocked it all out. Her mind was racing through everything she knew about radio communications in the Kunar Valley. The terrain was a nightmare: steep ridges, deep valleys, rock walls that scattered radio waves like broken glass. Standard frequencies wouldn't penetrate. The SEALs were trapped in an electronic dead zone. Unless... Her eyes widened. There was one frequency, an old one, barely used anymore, assigned to legacy equipment that most units had phased out years ago. It was lower power, shorter range, but it might propagate differently through the valley's terrain. The enemy wouldn't be monitoring it because nobody used it. It was a desperate shot, but desperate was all she had. Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, reconfiguring her transmission equipment. She grabbed a different headset, one connected to the old ANPRC 117 radio sitting unused in the corner of her station. The equipment was technically obsolete, scheduled for disposal, but she kept it operational because you never knew when old technology might save lives. Like right now. She keyed the microphone, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. "SEAL Element, this is Sentinel Actual, do you copy?" Static answered her, empty, mocking static. Behind her, Major Richards was coordinating the response. "Apache flight time is 12 minutes. QRF is loading now, wheels up in 15. Get me a satellite feed of that valley." 12 minutes, 15 minutes, lifetimes in a firefight. Maya tried again, adjusting the frequency slightly, compensating for atmospheric conditions. "SEAL Element, this is Sentinel Actual, do you copy on this frequency?" More static. She was transmitting into the void, her words disappearing into the Afghan night with no one to hear them. Her hand trembled as she reached for the frequency dial again. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe the terrain made communication impossible. Maybe they were already. No, she wouldn't think that, couldn't think that. She closed her eyes, remembering her instructor at Fort Gordon, a grizzled master sergeant who'd served 3 tours as a combat communicator. His voice echoed in her memory. "When everything fails, Santos, you get creative. You try things that shouldn't work, because sometimes the impossible is the only option you've got left." Maya opened her eyes and made a decision. She began transmitting continuously, cycling slowly through micro variations of the frequency, creating a spread spectrum that might, just might, find a path through the mountains. "SEAL Element, any station, this is Sentinel Actual. If you can hear me, try to respond on this frequency. I am transmitting on Legacy Band, low power, continuous. If you have any radio capability, I can reach you here." She kept talking, kept transmitting, her voice becoming a beacon in the electromagnetic spectrum. Seconds crawled by like hours. The operations center buzzed with activity around her, but she existed in a bubble of desperate focus. Then, so faint she almost missed it, a voice crackled through the static. "This is SEAL 23, reception is. Who is this?" Maya's heart exploded with hope. "SEAL 23, this is Petty Officer Santos, signals intelligence. Say again your status." The voice was clearer now, urgent and strained. "This is Chief Webb. Our primary comms are destroyed. We're pinned down under heavy fire, multiple wounded." Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb. She'd seen his personnel file, 15 years in special operations, 4 Bronze Stars, a legend in the SEAL community. And right now, he sounded scared. Maya grabbed a notepad, her training taking over. "Chief Webb, I need a quick situation report. How many wounded? How's your ammunition? Enemy strength?" 2 wounded, 1 critical. Ammunition at about 60%. We're taking fire from at least 3 positions. Estimated 40 to 50 enemy fighters. They set up a perfect ambush. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. 40 to 50 fighters. The SEALs were outnumbered 4-1, trapped in a kill zone with wounded teammates and dwindling ammunition. This wasn't just bad, it was catastrophic. But her voice remained calm, professional, exactly what these men needed to hear. "Chief Webb, listen to me carefully. I have access to enemy radio communications. I've been monitoring Taliban frequencies in this valley for 6 months. I can hear them talking to each other right now. They think they're secure, but I'm listening to everything." There was a pause, then Webb's voice came back. "You can hear their communications, in real time." "Affirmative. I'm tracking their movements, their positions, their plans. I can be your eyes and ears for this entire battlefield." Maya pulled up her intercept software, and the screen filled with Pashto transmissions, enemy fighters coordinating their assault, calling for more ammunition, reporting their positions. She could see the battle unfolding in their words, like reading a script of their own destruction. Another voice cut into the frequency, deeper and more authoritative. "Santos, this is Lieutenant Commander Hastings." The man who'd dismissed her. The man who'd called her radio girl and sent her away from his briefing. His voice was tight with pain and something else, regret. "Sir, I'm here," Maya responded simply. "You were right about everything. The silence, the ambush, you tried to warn us and I didn't listen." There was an explosion in the background of his transmission and Maya heard men shouting. When Hastings spoke again, his voice was raw. "We need you, Santos. We need you to help us survive this." Maya felt tears burning in her eyes, but she blinked them away. There was no time for emotions. 12 men were dying in those mountains, and she was the only thing standing between them and annihilation. "Sir, I've got you," she said firmly. "I'm not going to let you down." She switched her display to show both friendly positions, extrapolated from Hastings's description, and enemy positions gleaned from their radio traffic. The tactical picture was grim. The SEALs were in a shallow streambed at the bottom of the valley. Taliban fighters held the high ground on 3 sides, with more moving to cut off their escape route to the north. It was a perfect kill zone, and the noose was tightening. Maya pulled up a topographical map and overlaid it with the enemy communications data. Her mind raced through possibilities, analyzing terrain, enemy movements, friendly capabilities. The operations center had resources, Apache helicopters, a quick reaction force, artillery support. But all of that would take time, and time was the one thing the SEALs didn't have. What they needed was immediate, actionable intelligence that would keep them alive for the next 12 minutes until help arrived. And she could provide that. "Chief Webb, Lieutenant Commander Hastings, I need you to establish a communication relay. One of you stays on this frequency with me continuously. I'm going to guide you through this fight step by step." "Understood," Webb confirmed. "I'll maintain radio contact. The commander is coordinating the team's defense." "Good. First priority. I'm hearing Taliban fighters discussing a flanking movement on your eastern side. 4 fighters with light weapons, approaching from your 3 o'clock position, approximately 70 meters out. They plan to get within grenade range." There was a brief pause, then Webb's voice. "Rodriguez Martinez, watch our 3 o'clock 70 meters, flankers inbound." Maya pulled on a second headset, this one connected to her regular intercept equipment. Now she had enemy communications in one ear and friendly communications in the other. It was disorienting, a cacophony of Pashto and English, screams and gunfire, orders and chaos. But she forced her mind to process it all, to separate signal from noise, to find the patterns that would keep these men alive. "The flanking team is closing, 60 meters now. They're moving to your right, trying to use the rocks for cover." She heard the bark of rifles through Webb's radio, then his voice. "Flankers down, 2 confirmed kills, 2 retreating." "Good shooting," Maya said. Then her blood ran cold as she heard a new transmission in Pashto. "Chief Webb, I'm picking up communications about an RPG team setting up on the northern ridge. They're calculating firing solutions on your position right now. Can you give me a location? Maya's eyes scanned her screen, correlating the voice signature with known enemy positions. Northern Ridge, approximately 200 meters from your position, slightly elevated. Wait, they're about to fire. Incoming, she heard someone scream through Webb's radio. The explosion was so loud it distorted the transmission. When it cleared, Webb was coughing. That was close. Too damn close. How did you know? I heard them counting down, Maya said, her voice shaking slightly. I'm listening to everything, Chief. Every order, every movement, every plan. You're not fighting blind anymore. For the first time in this nightmare, she heard something new in Webb's voice. Hope. Santos, he said quietly, I don't know how you're doing this, but you're a miracle. Keep it coming. Tell us everything. Maya took a deep breath and settled into her chair. Around her, the operations center worked to coordinate the larger rescue effort. But in this moment, in this fight, she was all these men had. She would not fail them. Chief Webb, she said, her voice gaining strength, we're going to get you home. All of you, I promise. Maya's workspace had transformed into a command center of controlled chaos. 6 different computer monitors glowed in the darkness, each displaying a different layer of the battlefield. Her left headset fed her enemy communications in Pashto, a constant stream of Taliban fighters coordinating their assault. Her right headset connected her to Chief Webb and the trap seals. Her hands moved across 3 keyboards simultaneously, tracking, translating, and transmitting. She'd never felt more alive or more terrified in her life. Multiple contacts moving to your 10 o'clock position. Maya's voice was calm, clinical, betraying none of the fear churning in her stomach. 3 fighters with AKs, using the ridgeline for cover, approximately 40 meters out. Through Webb's radio, she heard Lieutenant Commander Hastings relay the information. Peterson, Williams, 10 o'clock, 40 meters, 3 tangos on the ridge. The sharp crack of SEAL rifles echoed through the radio transmission. Professional, precise, deadly. Targets neutralized, Webb confirmed. What else do you see, Santos? What she saw was a nightmare. Her main monitor displayed a topographical map of the Kunar Valley overlaid with real-time intelligence. Red dots marked enemy positions, gleaned from their radio communications. Blue dots represented the SEAL team, 12 men surrounded by more than 50 hostiles. The red dots were converging, tightening like a fist around the blue cluster. But Maya had something the Taliban didn't know she possessed, their own voices betraying them. I'm tracking a machine gun team setting up on the northern ridge, she said, her eyes scanning the Pashto translation scrolling across her screen. 2 men, PKM heavy machine gun. They're positioning now, calculating fields of fire. They're about to open up on your position. Range, Hastings's voice was tight. Maya checked the intercept data, cross-referencing with the terrain map. 230 meters, elevation advantage of approximately 40 meters. They'll have clear line of sight to your entire position in about 30 seconds. Rodriguez, Hastings barked. Northern Ridge, 230 meters elevated. Machine gun team, take them down before they get set. Through the radio, Maya heard the distinctive crack of Rodriguez's SR-25 marksman rifle. Once, twice, a pause, then a third shot. The Pashto chatter in her left ear exploded with confusion and panic. She heard someone screaming that the machine gunner was down, that they were taking sniper fire, that they needed to relocate. Machine gun team neutralized. Rodriguez's voice came through, steady despite the chaos. Good call, Santos. But there was no time to celebrate. Maya's screen showed new movement, enemy fighters repositioning, trying to find angles that would negate the SEAL's defensive advantages. Behind her in the operations center, Major Richards was coordinating the larger response. Apache flight is 8 minutes out. QRF is wheels up in 5. Santos, can they hold that long? Maya glanced at her tactical display. 8 minutes was an eternity in combat. The SEAL's ammunition wouldn't last. The wounded needed medical evacuation. The enemy was adapting, learning, bringing up heavier weapons. "They have to, sir," she said simply, then returned her focus to the radio. "Chief Webb, I'm picking up radio traffic about a mortar team. They're setting up approximately 400 meters southwest of your position." "Mortars?" Webb's voice carried a new edge of concern. "Can you get coordinates to counter-battery?" Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, triangulating the source of the transmission. "I'm working on it. The signal is moving. They're smart. They're staying mobile." She heard the enemy mortar team leader giving orders in Pashto, calculating elevation and deflection. Her blood went cold as she translated the numbers in her head. They were zeroing in on the SEAL team's position. "Chief Webb, mortars are about to fire. You need to disperse now." "Scatter, MORTARS incoming." Hastings's voice roared through the radio. Maya counted seconds in her head, her knowledge of Taliban mortar procedures giving her a grim timeline. 5 seconds. 4. 3. Impact in 2 seconds. The explosion came through Webb's radio like the end of the world, a thunderous detonation that made Maya's speakers crackle and distort. She heard men screaming, the sound of rocks and debris falling, someone crying out in pain. "Webb, Chief Webb, respond." Maya's voice cracked for the first time. "Static, terrible, endless static." "Chief Webb, please respond." Then finally, we're okay, mostly." Webb was coughing, his voice strained. "One round impacted 15 meters from our position. We scattered like you said. Martinez and Chen got thrown by the blast, but they're alive, if you hadn't warned us." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Maya pulled off one headset and wiped sweat from her forehead with a shaking hand. Major Richards appeared at her shoulder, his face grave. "Santos, the Apache are requesting target coordinates. Can you provide?" Maya nodded, splitting her attention. She pulled up the enemy position data compiled from the radio intercepts and began feeding coordinates to the operations center. Within 60 seconds, the information was transmitted to the incoming Apache gunships. But she couldn't lose focus on the immediate fight. "Chief Webb, I'm tracking approximately 8 to 10 fighters moving to your eastern flank. They're trying to set up a crossfire with the teams on the northern ridge." Through her Pashto headset, she heard the enemy tactical commander, a calm, educated voice giving precise orders. This wasn't some random Taliban fighter. This was someone with military training, possibly former Afghan National Army. He was coordinating the ambush with professional efficiency. And he was ordering his fighters to assault the SEAL position from multiple directions, simultaneously. "Chief Webb, they're preparing a coordinated assault. 3 teams moving in from different angles. They're going to hit you from the north, east, and south at the same time. They want to overwhelm your position." "When?" Hastings's voice cut in. Maya listened intently to the enemy communications, her mind racing to translate the tactical jargon. 2 minutes. They're synchronizing their attack now. She heard Hastings relaying orders, repositioning his men to defend against multiple threats. But the mathematics were brutal. 12 defenders against 50 attackers, with the enemy holding every advantage except one. They had Maya. "The northern team is moving first, 7 fighters. They're at 120 meters and closing." The SEAL rifles opened up, creating a wall of precision fire. Through the Pashto channel, Maya heard screams and confused shouting as the Taliban assault faltered. "Eastern team is advancing now. They're using suppressing fire, trying to keep your heads down while they close the distance. Rodriguez, Peterson, shift east. Lay down fire on that approach," Hastings commanded. The gunfight intensified. Maya could hear it through Webb's radio, the distinctive crack of M4 rifles mixing with the heavier bark of AK-47s, the zip and snap of bullets passing overhead, the shouted commands in English and Pashto. And through it all, she kept talking, kept translating, kept turning the enemy's own communications into their downfall. Southern team is holding position. They're waiting for the others to draw your fire. They're the reserve element. Hastings understood immediately. Webb, keep 3 men oriented south. They're trying to succor us. Then Maya heard something in her Pashto headset that made her breath catch. The enemy commander was calling for reinforcements, technical trucks mounted with heavy machine guns, inbound from a nearby Taliban camp. Chief Webb, you've got a bigger problem. Technical trucks with heavy weapons are en route to your position. Estimated time of arrival, 12 to 15 minutes. There was a pause on the radio. Then Hastings's voice, grim but steady. Santos, we can't hold against mounted heavy weapons, not with our ammunition situation and wounded. Maya glanced at the clock. The Apache were still 6 minutes out. The QRF was just lifting off. Even if everything went perfectly, the cavalry wouldn't arrive before those technical trucks did. She pulled up the tactical map again, her mind racing through possibilities. The SEAL team needed to move, but where? Every route she plotted led through enemy positions or across open ground that would turn into a killing field. Then she saw it, a narrow corridor on the map where enemy coverage was thinnest. It was risky, requiring the team to move through a boulder field while under fire, but it led to a more defensible position on higher ground. Lieutenant Commander Hastings, I might have a solution, Maya said, her voice tight with concentration. There's a narrow gap in the enemy coverage pattern, bearing 035 degrees from your current position. 200 meters of difficult terrain, but it leads to a rocky outcrop that's more defensible. The Taliban don't have forces positioned there yet. Yet being the operative word, Hastings replied. What's the timeline before they figure it out? Maya listened to the enemy communications. The commander hasn't ordered anyone to that sector. I think he's focused on the current assault. If you move now, you might make it before he redirects forces. Another explosion rocked the SEAL position. Someone screamed. We're running out of options, Webb's voice cut in. And ammunition, we need to move. Maya heard Hastings breathing heavily, making the calculation every commander dreads. Stay in a bad position or move through danger to reach something potentially better. Santos, Hastings said finally, you've been right about everything else tonight. We're trusting you with our lives. Guide us to that outcrop. Maya felt the weight of those words settle on her shoulders like a physical burden. 12 lives, 12 men depending on her ability to read a battlefield she couldn't see, relying on enemy communications that could change in seconds. Roger that, sir, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Prepare to move on my mark. I'll guide you every step of the way. She pulled up detailed satellite imagery of the route, cross-referencing it with enemy positions. Her fingers danced across the keyboards, and she began the most important briefing of her life. Apache is 3 minutes out, Major Richards said behind her. They'll provide covering fire for the movement. Maya nodded without turning around. 3 minutes until air support. 200 meters of deadly ground, and an enemy that was about to realize their prey was trying to escape. Chief Webb, Lieutenant Commander Hastings, Maya said. When those Apache open up, that's your window. Be ready to move fast. Through her headset, she heard the distant thump of helicopter rotors growing louder. The storm was about to break. The Apache attack helicopters screamed into the Kunar Valley like avenging angels, their 30 chain guns already spinning up. Maya had fed them target coordinates for every enemy position she'd identified through radio intercepts, machine gun nests, mortar teams, command posts. Now it was time to turn intelligence into violence. Apache lead, this is Sentinel Actual, Maya transmitted on the air support frequency. I have multiple targets designated. Friendlies are marked blue on your display. They will be moving to a new position on my signal. Danger close, fire missions authorized. Sentinel actual, Apache lead copies all. The pilot's voice was calm, professional. We have visual on the valley. Beginning attack run now. Tell your boys to keep their heads down. Through Webb's radio, Maya heard Hastings rallying his team. When those guns open up, we move fast and we move together. Nobody gets left behind. Santos will guide us through. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She pulled up the route on her main screen, 200 meters of boulder-strewn terrain that would take the wounded SEALs at least 4 minutes to traverse. 4 minutes of exposure. 4 minutes where everything could go catastrophically wrong. The Apache's chain gun roared to life, and the northern ridge erupted in explosions of dirt and rock. The 13 rounds tore through Taliban positions with devastating precision, each burst destroying a carefully prepared fighting position. "Geo, move now," Maya shouted into her radio. Through the Pashto channel in her left ear, she heard enemy communications dissolve into chaos. Fighters were screaming about helicopters, about casualties, about retreating. But she also heard the Taliban commander's voice cutting through the panic, ordering his men to hold their positions, to focus on the American ground team. He knew the SEALs were trying to escape. "Chief Webb, you're moving. I need constant updates on your position." Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, tracking the team's progress against enemy movements. "Moving now," Webb gasped. "Carrying 2 wounded, progress is slow." Too slow, Maya thought, but didn't say. On her screen, she could see the tactical picture developing. The Apache had suppressed the northern positions, but fighters on the eastern and southern ridges were repositioning, trying to get angles on the moving SEAL team. "You've got contacts adjusting position on your right flank," Maya warned. "Eastern ridge, approximately 100 meters. 3 fighters trying to get a bead on your movement." "Rodriguez," Hastings's voice cut through, "suppress that eastern position." The marksman's rifle cracked repeatedly. Through the Pashto channel, Maya heard one of the fighters cry out, then silence from that position. "Keep moving," Maya urged. "You've covered 50 meters, 150 to go." But her screen showed a new problem developing. The Taliban commander was sending fighters to cut off the SEAL team's route. 8 men moving fast through terrain they knew intimately, trying to reach the rocky outcrop before the Americans did. "Lieutenant Commander, you've got a blocking force forming ahead of you. 8 fighters moving to intercept your route. They're 200 meters from the outcrop, moving fast." "Can the Apache engage?" Hastings asked between labored breaths. Maya checked the geometry. "Negative, they're in a dead zone behind a rock formation. The Apache can't get an angle without overflying and exposing itself to RPGs." She heard Hastings curse. "How long before they reach the outcrop?" Maya did the mental math, calculating movement rates across terrain. 3 minutes, maybe less. "And how long before we get there?" "At your current pace, 4 minutes." The silence on the radio spoke volumes. The race was lost before it began. "Unless," Maya's mind raced, examining the enemy communications data. "Chief Webb, there's another option. It's risky." "Everything's risky tonight," Webb shot back. "What have you got?" Maya traced an alternate route on her screen. 70 meters to your left, there's a ravine. It's steeper, harder to traverse with wounded, but it approaches the outcrop from a different angle. The blocking force won't see you coming until you're right on top of them. Through her Pashto headset, she heard the Taliban fighters reporting their positions, confident they were moving to cut off the Americans' escape. They had no idea the plan was about to change. "The ravine puts us at a tactical disadvantage," Hastings said. "Low ground, limited visibility." "Yes, sir," Maya agreed. "But they're not watching it. They're focused on the main approach. It's not a good option. It's just the best option we have." Another explosion rocked the valley as the Apache engaged a mortar position. Time was bleeding away with every second. Do it, Hastings decided. Santos, guide us through this ravine. Webb, adjust our route left. Maya pulled up detailed topographical data of the ravine, her eyes scanning for obstacles, choke points, anywhere the team might get pinned down. Okay, in 30 meters you'll see a break in the rocks to your left. That's your entry point to the ravine. It's going to be steep, approximately 40-degree incline going down, then you'll be moving through a narrow channel. Understood, Webb confirmed. I see the break moving now. Through her screens, Maya watched the intersection of multiple data streams, friendly positions estimated from Webb's reports, enemy movements tracked through their communications, terrain analysis from satellite imagery. She was conducting a deadly orchestra, and one wrong note would cost lives. You're entering the ravine now, Maya narrated. Move quietly. Sound carries in that terrain. The enemy blocking force is 150 meters ahead and above you. She heard the strain in Webb's breathing as the team navigated the steep descent while carrying wounded comrades. Someone slipped, and she heard rocks clattering down the slope. Immediately, the Pashto channel lit up. I heard something, a Taliban fighter reported, in the ravine to the south. They heard you, Maya said urgently. They're investigating. 3 fighters breaking off from the main group, heading toward your position. How long? Hastings asked. 90 seconds, until they reach a position where they can see into the ravine. Through Webb's radio, she heard Hastings giving quiet orders. Ambush positions. Make it quick and silent. We can't alert the main group. Maya listened to the Taliban fighters approaching, their radio chatter casual, unconcerned. They thought they were checking out an animal or falling rocks. They had no idea they were walking into a trap set by some of America's deadliest warriors. 60 seconds, Maya whispered, though she knew the SEALs couldn't actually be quieter because of her warning. It was instinct. 30 seconds. They're directly above your position now. The sound that came through Webb's radio was brief and brutal, suppressed gunfire. A short struggle, then silence. Clear, Hastings breathed. 3 enemy KIA, continuing movement. But the Pashto channel erupted with concern. Rashid Abdul Hamza, report your position, the Taliban commander demanded. The fighters Hastings had just killed weren't answering. They know something's wrong, Maya warned. The commander is trying to raise the fighters you just engaged. When they don't respond, he's going to know you're in the ravine. How long before he figures it out? Webb asked. Maybe 30 seconds, maybe less. Maya's mind raced. The SEALs were still 80 meters from the outcrop, trapped in a ravine with limited maneuverability. If the Taliban commander redirected his blocking force into the ravine, it would become a killing shoot. Apache lead, this is Sentinel Actual. Maya switched frequencies. I need you to create a diversion. Light up the southern ridge positions. Make them think that's where the ground team is headed. Roger, Sentinel, engaging southern ridge now. The Apache's guns roared again, tearing into Taliban positions on the southern ridge. Through the Pashto channel, Maya heard the confusion she'd hoped for, fighters reporting they were under attack, the commander shouting orders to defend against the helicopter. But he was smart, this Taliban commander. The helicopter is a diversion, he shouted in Pashto. Find the Americans. They're moving somewhere we're not watching. Chief Webb, they're onto you. You need to move faster. We're going as fast as we can with 2-liter cases. Webb's frustration was evident. Maya checked her displays. The blocking force was splitting up, searching for the SEAL team. 2 fighters were moving directly toward the ravine exit, exactly where the SEALs needed to go. You've got 2 hostiles at your exit point, Maya reported. 60 meters ahead, watching the approach. She heard Hastings relay the information, heard the team slow their movement to avoid detection. But slowing down meant the other Taliban fighters had more time to search, more chances to find them. Maya felt the weight of command, every decision a gamble with human lives. Push them to move faster and risk detection. Tell them to slow down and risk being surrounded. There were no good choices, only less terrible ones. Then she heard something in the Pashto channel that changed everything. "The Americans are in the ravine," a fighter shouted. "I see their movement in the ravine." "All fighters converge on the ravine," the Taliban commander ordered. "Block both ends, we have them trapped." Maya's blood turned to ice. "Chief Webb, they've spotted you. All enemy forces are converging on your position. The ravine is about to become a kill zone." Through the radio, she heard Hastings making the impossible calculation. They were trapped in a narrow ravine with wounded teammates, enemy fighters closing in from both ends, and no good options left. "Santos," Hastings's voice was steady despite the desperation of their situation. "We need a miracle. What do you see that we don't?" Maya stared at her screens, her mind racing through tactical scenarios at lightning speed. The SEALs couldn't go forward, fighters at the exit. Couldn't go back, more fighters closing from behind. Couldn't climb out. The ravine walls were too steep with wounded men. They were trapped. Unless... Her eyes locked onto a detail in the satellite imagery she'd almost missed. A smaller side channel branching off the main ravine, barely wide enough for a man to squeeze through, leading up and out 30 meters before the main exit. "There's a side channel," Maya said quickly. 15 meters ahead on your right side. It's narrow, really narrow, but it leads up and out. It'll put you above the fighters watching the main exit." "How narrow?" Webb asked. Maya checked the imagery, measuring the gap. "Maybe 2 feet wide. You'll have to move single file. The wounded will have to be pulled through." "That's going to be slow," Hastings said. "Yes, sir," Maya agreed. "But the Taliban don't know about it. They're focused on the main ravine. It's your only chance." She could hear the labored breathing on the other end of the radio as Hastings made his decision. "We're taking it. Guide us through, Santos, every step." Maya's hands trembled as she zoomed in on the satellite imagery, trying to extract every detail from the grainy photo. The side channel was there, barely visible, a crack in the earth that might be their salvation or their tomb. 10 meters ahead, Chief Webb. The opening should be on your right side. It's going to look impossibly narrow. Trust me, you can fit." Through the radio, she heard rocks scraping, heavy breathing, someone muttering a prayer. Then Webb's voice, tight with stress. "I see it. Santos, this isn't a channel. This is a crack in the rock. We'll have to go sideways." "I know," Maya said, her voice steady despite the panic clawing at her chest. "But the Taliban are 30 seconds behind you and 20 seconds ahead. This crack is survival." She heard Hastings's voice in the background. "Peterson, Williams, you're our rear guard. Hold them as long as you can, then follow us through. Rodriguez, you're on point. Find the exit and secure it. Everyone else, we're moving wounded through first." On her Pashto channel, Maya heard the Taliban fighters closing in, their voices excited, confident. They thought they had the Americans trapped like rats in a barrel. "Taliban blocking force is at the main ravine exit now," Maya reported. 5 fighters taking up positions. They're waiting for you to walk into their ambush." "They're going to be waiting a long time," Hastings growled. Through Webb's radio, Maya heard the sounds of men struggling through the narrow gap, gear scraping against rock, grunts of pain as wounded SEALs were carefully pulled through the constricted space. Every sound seemed amplified, echoing off the ravine walls. "Enemy rear element is 40 meters behind you and closing," Maya warned, watching the tactical picture develop on her screen. "They're moving cautiously, weapons up. They know you're in there somewhere." She heard Peterson's voice, calm and professional. "I've got eyes on them. 4 tangos, standard tactical formation. Permission to engage." "Negative," Hastings replied. "Gunfire will alert the blocking force at the exit. Stay quiet as long as possible." Maya bit her lip. watching the two groups of enemy fighters converging on the main ravine like the jaws of a trap. The SEALs had maybe 2 minutes before those jaws snapped shut on an empty ravine, and the Taliban realized their prey had escaped. Then they'd start searching, and they'd find the side channel. "Chief Webb, how many are through?" Maya asked. "4 so far, including 1 wounded. This is taking too long." It was taking too long. Maya could see it in the data, the mathematics of time and distance working against them. Even if every SEAL made it through the side channel, the Taliban would discover the escape route before the last man cleared. Someone was going to have to buy them time. "Lieutenant Commander Hastings," Maya said slowly, an idea forming. "What if we made them think you were still in the main ravine?" "I'm listening." Maya pulled up the enemy communications data, analyzing the Taliban commander's tactical pattern. He was methodical, careful, coordinating his forces through radio communication. He wanted to trap the Americans, not just kill them. Capture or kill a SEAL team would be a massive propaganda victory. "The Apache is still on station," Maya said, her mind racing. "What if we had it engage the blocking force at the ravine exit? The Taliban commander would think you're trying to fight your way out through the main exit. He'd reinforce that position, pull fighters away from other areas." She heard Hastings breathing, thinking. That works until the Apache has to break off to refuel. Then they'll search the ravine and find our escape route. 20 minutes, Maya checked the Apache's fuel status. "The helicopter has 20 minutes before it needs to RTB, if you can clear the side channel in that time." "We're not going to make it," Webb cut in, his voice strained. "Not with wounded, not through this gap. We need at least 30 minutes. Maya's heart sank. The math didn't work. The Apache couldn't stay, the SEALs couldn't move faster, and the enemy wasn't going to give them the time they needed. "Unless we give them something else to worry about," Maya said suddenly. "Explain," Hastings ordered. Maya switched to the operations center frequency. "Major Richards, what's the QRF status?" "Inbound 10 minutes out. 2 Black Hawks with a full platoon." 10 minutes. Maya's mind calculated angles and distances. The QRF couldn't reach the SEAL team's position in time, but they didn't need to. "Sir, what if the QRF makes a false insertion 3 clicks south of the SEAL team's position? Make it loud, make it obvious. The Taliban commander will think it's a rescue force moving to link up with the SEALs. He'll have to split his forces to counter it." She heard Richards conferring with someone then. "That's actually brilliant, Santos. It'll draw off at least half their fighters, coordinating with QRF now." Through her Pashto channel, Maya continued monitoring the enemy. The Taliban rear element was getting closer to the main ravine entrance, 20 meters now. Any second, they'd start wondering why they weren't making contact. "Rear element is almost in the ravine," Maya warned. "Peterson, they're 15 meters from your position." "I see them," Peterson's whisper came back, still holding fire. The tension was unbearable. Maya could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. On her screen, she watched the blue dot representing Peterson and the red dots representing Taliban fighters converge. 10 meters. 5 meters. "They're entering the ravine," Maya breathed. "Any second now they're going to realize it's empty and—" A massive explosion lit up her screen as the Apache unleashed a Hellfire missile on the blocking force at the ravine exit. The blast was so powerful it shook the mountains, sending a fireball climbing into the night sky. The Taliban fighters in the rear stopped dead, shouting in confusion and fear. Through the Pashto channel, Maya heard their voices crying out, asking what happened if the Americans had rocket launchers. "QRF is making their diversionary insertion now," Major Richards reported. "Black Hawks going in hot 3 clicks south, full suppression." The Taliban radio net exploded with frantic communications. The commander was shouting orders, trying to coordinate responses to multiple threats at once. The Apache attack, the apparent QRF insertion, the missing American ground team. "It's working," Maya said, almost not believing it. "He's splitting his forces, pulling fighters away from your area to counter the QRF." "How many through the channel?" Hastings asked Webb. 8, 4 more to go, including Chen. "He's bad, boss, real bad." Maya checked the timeline. The Apache had 18 minutes of fuel remaining. The QRF was engaging Taliban fighters 3 clicks away, buying time but taking casualties. Everything hung in a delicate balance. Then her Pashto channel crackled with the voice she'd learned to recognize, the Taliban commander himself. "Search the ravine," he ordered in Pashto. "I think the helicopter attack was a diversion. The Americans might have escaped. Search every meter, find them." Maya's blood turned to ice. "Chief Webb, the commander suspects you've escaped. He's ordering a detailed search of the entire ravine system. They'll find the side channel." She heard Hastings curse, heard the sounds of men moving faster through the narrow gap, rocks breaking loose, someone crying out in pain as they scraped through too quickly. 11 through, Webb reported. "Just me left. I'm pushing Chen through now, but he's unconscious. We have to." There, in the side channel, a Taliban fighter's voice shouted in Pashto. "They found you," Maya said, her voice breaking. "They're calling for reinforcements to the side channel." She heard gunfire through Webb's radio, Peterson and Williams laying down suppressing fire as they covered the final extraction. The Apache swung around, its chain gun roaring as it engaged Taliban fighters rushing toward the side channel exit. "Webb, get out of there," Hastings roared. "Chen's stuck," Webb shouted back. "His gear caught on something, he's wedged in the gap and he's unconscious. I can't." Maya heard the desperation in his voice. An unconscious man stuck in a 2-foot-wide crack in the rock, enemy fighters closing in, time running out. "Chief Webb," Maya said, her voice somehow calm, "you need to strip his gear. Cut it off if you have to. Get him through that gap in the next 30 seconds or everyone dies." She heard the sound of a knife cutting through nylon, Velcro ripping, Webb grunting with effort as he manhandled the unconscious SEAL through the narrow space. Through the Pashto channel, "They're escaping through the side channel. Block the exit. Don't let them reach the high ground." 15 seconds, Chief, Maya urged, watching the enemy positions converge on the screen. "Almost there," Webb gasped. The Apache's guns fell silent, out of ammunition. The pilot's voice came through. "Sentinel, Apache is Winchester. We're out of ordnance and critically low on fuel. We have to RTB." 10 seconds, Chief Webb. "I've got him, he's through." Geo, Hastings's voice. Through the radio, Maya heard the SEAL team scrambling up and out of the side channel, heard them reaching the rocky outcrop, heard them establishing defensive positions as Taliban fighters poured into the ravine below. Too late, just seconds too late. "We're up," Webb gasped, his breath coming in ragged gulps. "We're on the outcrop, we made it." Maya slumped back in her chair, her hands shaking uncontrollably. They'd made it through the impossible gauntlet, but as she looked at her screen, her relief evaporated. The outcrop was defensible, but it wasn't salvation. 60 Taliban fighters were regrouping, surrounding the position. The Apache was gone. The QRF was pinned down 3 clicks away, taking heavy fire. And those technical trucks with heavy machine guns she'd warned about earlier. Her screen showed them entering the valley. Estimated time of arrival, 8 minutes. The gauntlet was over, but the real fight was about to begin. The rocky outcrop gave the SEALs maybe 20 meters of defensible perimeter, a small fortress of stone and desperation perched on the side of a mountain. It was better than the ravine, but not by much. Maya could see it all on her screen. 12 exhausted men, 3 critically wounded, surrounded by an enemy that was regrouping and thirsting for blood. "Sentinel Actual, this is Nomad 6. Hastings's voice was hoarse, worn down by 2 hours of continuous combat. We're in position, but we're critically low on ammunition. Maybe 2 magazines per man. Chen needs immediate medical evacuation or he's not going to make it. What's our extraction timeline? Maya looked at Major Richards, who was coordinating frantically with multiple elements. His face was grim. The QRF is still pinned down, Richards said. They walked into their own ambush trying to create your diversion. We're working on getting them extracted too. The closest extraction birds are 13 minutes out. 13 minutes. Maya's screen showed the technical trucks, Toyota Hiluxes with Soviet-era DSH-K heavy machine guns mounted in their beds, grinding their way up the mountain roads. 8 minutes until they arrived with weapons that could tear through the SEAL's rocky cover like paper. Lieutenant Commander, extraction is 13 minutes out, Maya transmitted, her voice steady despite the hopelessness of the math. But you have a more immediate problem. Those technical trucks I warned about are 8 minutes from your position. The silence on the radio was heavy with the weight of impossible choices. Can we engage the trucks before they arrive? Hastings asked. Maya checked her assets. The Apache is RTB for fuel and ammo. We have no artillery in range. No air support available for, she checked, 6 minutes. Nothing that can touch those trucks before they reach you. Then we hold, Hastings said simply. We've held this long. But Maya knew the truth, and she knew Hastings knew it too. Holding against infantry with rifles was one thing. Holding against truck-mounted heavy machine guns that could shred their position was another. The DSH-K fired 12.7 rounds, the Russian equivalent of the .50 caliber. Each round could punch through concrete, let alone the rocks the SEALs were hiding behind. She refused to accept that these men would die on her watch. Major Richards, Maya turned to the operations officer, what about the extraction birds? Can they come in hot, extract under fire? 2 MH-60 Black Hawks, Richards replied. But bringing them into a hot LZ with heavy weapons and no air support is a suicide mission. The pilots won't. Sentinel Actual, this is Raider Lead. A new voice cut into the frequency, calm, southern drawl, the voice of a man who'd flown into hell before. We've been monitoring this net. We're coming for your boys. I don't care what's shooting at us. Maya felt hope surge in her chest. Raider Lead, you're looking at heavy machine gun fire, multiple RPG teams, small arms from elevated positions. The LZ is going to be a kill zone. Ma'am, every LZ in Afghanistan is a kill zone, the pilot replied. That's why they pay us the big bucks. We're spinning up now. 8 minutes to your position. 8 minutes. The same timeline as the technical trucks. It was going to be a race between rescue and annihilation. Maya pulled up every available intelligence source, constructing a three-dimensional picture of the battlefield in her mind. The technical trucks were approaching from the south on a winding mountain road. The extraction helicopters would come from the north. The SEAL team was in the middle, on an outcrop barely large enough for one helicopter to land. Chief Webb, Maya said, formulating a plan as she spoke, I need you to establish 2 distinct landing zones. The outcrop is too small for both birds at once. You'll need to split the team. Negative, Hastings cut in. We're not splitting up. All 12 of us get on those birds or none of us do. Sir, with respect, the outcrop can't physically accommodate 2 Black Hawks simultaneously, Maya insisted. And if you try to load everyone on one bird, you'll be sitting on the ground too long. The technical trucks will tear you apart. She heard Hastings breathing hard, the sound of a commander facing a decision he didn't want to make. There's a smaller ledge 30 meters below your current position, Maya continued, studying the satellite imagery. It's exposed, less defensible, but it can serve as a secondary LZ. First bird lands on the outcrop, takes the 3 critical wounded plus 3 able-bodied to provide security. Second bird lands on the lower ledge simultaneously, takes the remaining 6. Simultaneously, Webb repeated. Both birds in the kill zone at the same time. It's the only way to minimize ground time, Maya said. In and out in under 60 seconds. Any longer and those heavy machine guns will shoot you out of the sky. Through her Pashto channel, she heard the Taliban commander coordinating the final assault. He knew the Americans would try to extract. He was positioning his forces to prevent it. RPG teams on the ridgelines, machine gunners covering the approaches, the technical trucks moving into position to provide heavy suppressive fire. It was going to be a hellstorm. Raider lead, this is Sentinel Actual, Maya transmitted. I'm going to talk you through every meter of your approach. I have real-time enemy positions from their radio communications. I can thread you between the threats. We're listening, Sentinel, the pilot replied. Maya switched back to the SEAL frequency. Lieutenant Commander Hastings, split your team now. Get your wounded to the upper LZ, your able-bodied to the lower ledge. You have 6 minutes before this all kicks off. She heard Hastings relaying orders, heard men moving despite their exhaustion, heard Chen moaning in pain as he was carried to position. 5 minutes. Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, plotting ingress routes for the helicopters that would minimize their exposure to enemy fire. The valley was a maze of ridgelines and dead spaces, and she was finding the path through. Technical trucks are 4 minutes from firing position, she reported, watching the red dots on her screen converge. 4 minutes. Through the Pashto channel, the Taliban commander was issuing final orders. When the helicopters come, fire everything. RPGs, machine guns, everything. We will shoot them from the sky and kill every American. 3 minutes. Raider lead, you'll approach from the north along the valley floor, then pop up at the last second for the landing. I'm designating waypoints now. Follow them exactly. Any deviation puts you in an RPG engagement zone. Roger, Sentinel. Waypoints received 2 minutes out. 2 minutes. Maya could see it all coming together on her screen like a deadly choreography. The helicopters racing in from the north, the technical trucks approaching from the south, 60 Taliban fighters surrounding the outcrop, and 12 American warriors in the middle, running on empty but refusing to quit. Chief Webb, enemy fighters are repositioning for the extraction, Maya warned. They know you're leaving. They're going to throw everything at those birds. We're ready, Webb replied, but Maya could hear the fear underneath the bravado. 1 minute. All stations, this is Raider lead, 1 minute to LZ, going tactical. Maya switched her view to the helicopter frequency. She could hear the pilots breathing, the roar of the engines, the door gunners charging their weapons. Raider 2, you've got the lower ledge. I've got the outcrop, Raider lead transmitted. Copy that, lead, right behind you. 30 seconds. Through her Pashto channel, the helicopters are coming, all weapons prepare to fire. Raider lead, you've got RPG teams on the eastern ridge, 200 meters. Machine gun positions on the western slope. Technical trucks cresting the southern road now. They have line of sight to the LZ. We see them, Sentinel. The door gunners opened up first. M134 minigun screaming at 4,000 rounds per minute, suppressing the enemy positions as the Black Hawk screamed into the valley. 15 seconds. The technical truck's heavy machine guns roared to life, their tracers reaching toward the helicopters like orange fingers of death. The DSHK rounds tore through the air, some finding metal, punching holes through the Black Hawk's skin. We're taking fire, Raider 2 called out. Stay on target, Raider lead commanded. 10 seconds. Maya watched her screen and called out threats in real time. RPG launch, Eastern Ridge. The helicopter juked hard left. The rocket-propelled grenade streaked past, missing by meters. 5 seconds. The Black Hawks flared hard, their wheels slamming onto the rocky ledges. The outcrop bird touched down first, its rotors mere feet from the cliff edge. The lower ledge bird came in simultaneously, the pilot fighting the downdraft and the bullets pinging off his aircraft. "Geo, Geo, Geo," Hastings roared. Through Webb's radio, Maya heard the organized chaos of men moving under fire, wounded being loaded, able-bodied SEALs providing covering fire, door gunners hammering enemy positions. A technical truck's machine gun found its mark. Rounds tore through Raider 2's tail section. The pilot fought the controls as warning lights lit up his cockpit. "We're hit, hydraulics failing," Raider 2 called out. "Can you fly?" Raider lead demanded. "For now." "Then get loaded and get out." 30 seconds on the ground. Too long, much too long. An RPG team fired from point-blank range. Maya saw it on her screen, heard it in the Pashto transmission, tried to warn them, but the rocket hit Raider lead's tail rotor. The helicopter spun violently, its pilot fighting desperately to maintain control. Metal shrieked. The aircraft tilted dangerously toward the cliff edge. "We're going down," Raider lead shouted. "Not today, you're not." Maya heard Webb's voice, saw through the chaos that the SEALs on the outcrop had grabbed the helicopter's landing skids, were physically holding the aircraft on the ledge with their bodies, preventing it from tumbling over the cliff. The pilot corrected, stabilized. The SEALs let go and dove through the doors. "Everyone's in, pull up," Hastings screamed. Both Black Hawks clawed for altitude, their damaged airframes shuddering, trailing smoke, enemy fire following them into the sky. A final RPG streaked between them, missing both birds by inches. Then they cleared the ridgeline and banked hard north, the valley falling away behind them. Maya pulled off her headset with shaking hands, tears streaming down her face. Through the radio, she heard men laughing, crying, some doing both. They were alive. All 12 of them were alive. "Raider lead, this is Sentinel Actual," she managed to say. "What's your status?" "We're flying on a prayer and duct tape, Sentinel," the pilot replied, his voice shaky. "But we're flying, your boys are safe, we're coming home." In the operations center, Major Richards put his hand on Maya's shoulder. Around her, officers and enlisted personnel were applauding, but she barely heard them. All that mattered was the voice in her headset, Chief Webb, speaking words that would stay with her forever. "Santos, we owe you our lives, every single one of us. You brought us home." End of Part 7. Extended. Maya sat alone in the communications hub long after the helicopters had landed safely at FOB Sentinel. The adrenaline that had sustained her through the night had drained away, leaving her hollow and trembling. Her screen still glowed with data from the mission. Enemy positions now scattered and retreating, friendly forces returning to base, the digital ghosts of a battle that had nearly ended in massacre. She'd saved 12 lives tonight, but she couldn't stop thinking about how close she'd come to losing them all. The door opened behind her. Maya didn't turn around, assuming it was Major Richards coming to debrief her. Instead, she heard multiple footsteps, heavy boots on the plywood floor, the sound of men who just walked through hell. "Petty Officer Santos." She spun in her chair. Lieutenant Commander Derek Hastings stood in her doorway, and behind him the entire SEAL team. They were battered, bloodied, covered in dust and cordite. Chen was on a stretcher, sedated but stable. The others stood on their own feet, though several leaned heavily on their teammates. Maya shot to her feet, suddenly uncertain. These were the men who'd dismissed her, who'd called her just the radio girl, who'd ignored her warnings and paid for it in blood. Hastings stepped forward. His face was haggard, aged a decade in one night, but his eyes were clear and direct. He came to attention and rendered a crisp, formal salute, a commissioned officer saluting an enlisted sailor, something that violated every standard military protocol. But this wasn't about protocol. "Petty Officer Second Class Maya Santos," Hastings said, his voice carrying through the small room. "On behalf of SEAL Team 6 and every man standing in this room, I want to say something I should have said hours ago. You were right, and I was wrong. You tried to warn us and I was too arrogant to listen. That mistake nearly cost 12 lives." Maya's throat tightened. She tried to speak but couldn't find words. Hastings continued, his voice rough with emotion. "What you did tonight went beyond duty. You became our eyes, our ears, our lifeline when we had nothing else. You fought that battle as hard as any operator on the ground, harder maybe, because you carried the weight of all our lives in your hands and never faltered." Chief Webb stepped forward, holding something carefully wrapped in cloth. He unfolded it slowly, revealing a SEAL Trident patch, the golden symbol of naval special warfare, earned through some of the most brutal training in the world. "This is unofficial," Webb said, his voice thick. "We can't make you a SEAL. That takes hell week and a whole lot of suffering we wouldn't wish on our worst enemy. But in every way that matters, you fought beside us tonight. You bled with us, even if it wasn't your blood. You never quit on us, not for 1 second." He held out the Trident patch. "We want you to have this. You earned it." Maya took the patch with trembling hands, staring at the golden eagle clutching an anchor, trident, and flintlock pistol. She'd seen these patches on the chests of operators her entire career, symbols of an elite brotherhood she could never officially join. But they were giving her one anyway. Her voice cracked. "I was just doing my job." "No," Hastings said firmly. "You did so much more than your job. Your job was to monitor communications. You became a tactical operations center, an air traffic controller, a combat coordinator, and a guardian angel all at once. You saw a battlefield you couldn't physically see, and you guided us through it with nothing but your mind and your courage." Rodriguez, the sniper who'd made those critical shots, spoke up. "You called targets I couldn't even see, Santos. You knew where they were before they knew where they were. I've worked with forward air controllers, JTACS, the best spotters in the military. Nobody compares to what you did tonight." "The ravine," another SEAL added. "That side channel. You found it on a satellite photo and talked us through it in the dark. That was impossible. You did it anyway." Maya felt tears burning down her cheeks. These hard men, these warriors who'd faced death and come through the other side, were telling her she belonged among them. "There's something else." Major Richards' voice came from the doorway. He entered carrying an official folder. "Petty Officer Santos, I've submitted a recommendation for the Bronze Star Medal with Valor device. Your actions tonight demonstrated extraordinary heroism and tactical brilliance under extreme pressure. You will be formally recognized for what you did." The room erupted in applause, not just the SEALs, but the Operations Center staff who'd filtered in behind them, the intelligence analysts, the communications techs, even the base commander standing in the back with a slight smile. But Maya barely heard it. Her eyes were locked on the men she'd saved, the warriors who'd finally seen her not as the radio girl, but as one of them. Hastings extended his hand. "Partners." Maya gripped it firmly, her voice steady now. "Partners, sir." The SEAL team gathered around her, and for the first time in her career, Maya felt the weight of true respect. Not because of her rank or her position, but because when it mattered most, she'd proven that courage came in many forms. Over the following weeks, the story of the radio girl who saved SEAL Team 6 spread through the military. It became a case study at the Navy's Signals Intelligence School, taught to every new analyst as an example of what dedication and skill could achieve. Maya received her Bronze Star in a ceremony attended by senior officers from across the command. But the real change was quieter, more personal. When she walked through FOB Sentinel now, operators nodded with genuine respect. When she entered briefing rooms, commanders listened. When she raised concerns about intelligence patterns, people paid attention. The dismissive nickname Radio Girl disappeared, replaced by her rank and her name, and often simply by Santos, spoken with the same respect given to any warrior. 3 months later, Maya was promoted to first-class petty officer ahead of schedule. Her evaluation from Lieutenant Commander Hastings read simply, "Petty Officer Santos embodies the highest standards of naval service. She sees what others miss, acts when others hesitate, and saves lives when others would have given up. Any command would be fortunate to have her." But perhaps the most meaningful moment came on a quiet evening when Chief Webb found her in the communications hub, monitoring the same frequencies she'd used to save his life. "You ever think about going to OCS?" he asked, referring to Officer Candidate School. "Becoming an officer?" Maya considered it. "Maybe someday. Right now I'm exactly where I need to be." Webb nodded, understanding. "You know what the guys call you now?" "What?" "The Guardian, because that night you were watching over us when nobody else could." Maya smiled, turning back to her screens. "Just doing my job, Chief." "No," Webb said, echoing Hastings's words from months ago. "You did something much more important. You reminded all of us that every position matters. Every role in combat is critical. And that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the gun you carry. It's the courage to use your skills when lives depend on it." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "The guys wanted me to tell you something. If we ever go back out there, we want you on our radio. Nobody else, just you." After he left, Maya sat in the quiet hum of her equipment, the Seal Trident patch now sewn onto her personal gear bag. She thought about that night, the fear, the chaos, the impossible decisions that had somehow led to everyone coming home alive. She'd proven that heroism wasn't about gender or position, or whether you carried a rifle into combat. It was about doing your job with excellence, about refusing to quit when people needed you, about seeing the battlefield others couldn't see, and having the courage to guide warriors through the darkness. The radio crackled with routine traffic, status reports, supply requests, the mundane communications of a forward base at war. But Maya listened to every word with the same intensity she'd had that night, because she knew that buried in the routine might be the signal that saved lives. She was no longer just the radio girl. She was Petty Officer First Class Maya Santos, Signals Intelligence Analyst, Combat Coordinator, and the woman who'd brought 12 warriors home from hell using nothing but her voice, her mind, and her unshakable determination. And if they ever needed her again, she'd be ready. Always ready. Always listening. Always bringing them home.